The night was colder than usual. The kind of cold that felt sharp and unforgiving. A thin layer of frost covered the ground, and the wind moved through the empty land like it was searching for warmth but finding none. In a small house near the edge of town, a man sat alone by a weak fire, trying to keep himself warm. The world outside was quiet. Almost too quiet. As if everyone had chosen to hide from the cold. Then, suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was soft at first. So soft that the man thought he imagined it. He leaned forward, listening. A moment later, the knock came again, gentle, hesitant, almost fearful. The man stood up slowly. Visitors were rare at that hour, especially on a night like this. His first feeling was caution. In his life, he had learned to be careful. The world had not always been kind, and trust was something he gave slowly. He walked toward the door and stopped. Through the thin wood, he heard a quiet voice. Weak, but clear enough to understand. "I'm cold. Please let me in." The words carried more than just the need for warmth. They carried exhaustion, fear, and a deep sense of helplessness. The man hesitated. He had heard many stories that made people close their doors instead of opening them. His hand rested on the door, but his mind was full of questions. Who was out there? Why had she come to his house? Was it safe? After a long moment, he opened the door just a little. Standing outside was a woman who looked like she had been walking for a very long time. Her clothes were thin and worn, not meant for winter. Her face was tired, lined with pain and worry, but her eyes were calm. They did not beg with force. They simply asked, honestly and quietly. She was Apache, and her dark hair was tied back loosely, strands moving in the cold wind. Her hands were shaking, not just from fear, but from the freezing air. "I won't cause trouble," she said quickly, as if she had said these words many times before. "I just need to get warm. I'll leave before morning." The man studied her carefully. She did not try to push the door open. She did not step forward without permission. She stood there, waiting, respecting the space between them. That small detail made him pause. There was something about her that felt real, not practiced or false. He asked her where she was coming from. "Nowhere," she answered honestly. "And everywhere." She explained that she had lost her place to stay weeks ago. Work had disappeared, and help was hard to find. Every night had been a fight against hunger and cold. She had walked until her feet burned and her body felt heavy. When she saw the light in his window, it felt like her last chance. The man looked past her into the dark road. There was no one else, just the empty land and the freezing wind. He thought of his own warm fire, the bread on his table, and the thick blanket folded on his chair. He also thought of the risks. Letting a stranger in was not something people did easily anymore. Sensing his doubt, the woman spoke again, her voice steady despite the cold. "I promise," she said. "I will take nothing that is not given. I will sit quietly. I will leave by morning. You have my word." Her promise did not sound dramatic. It was simple, spoken like something sacred. To her, words still meant something. The man felt something shift inside him. He remembered his own hard times years ago, when a stranger had once helped him without asking questions. That memory had never left him. Slowly, he opened the door wider. "Come in," he said. She stepped inside carefully, as if afraid the offer might disappear if she moved too fast. The warmth hit her immediately, and she took a deep breath. Her shoulders relaxed just a little, but she did not rush toward the fire or the table. She stood where she was, waiting to be told what to do. The man pointed to a chair near the fire. She sat down, holding her hands close to the heat but not too close. He noticed how careful she was with every movement. There was no greed in her actions, only survival mixed with dignity. He gave her a cup of warm water first, then some simple food. She accepted it with quiet gratitude, eating slowly, as if trying to make it last. She did not ask for more. She did not complain. Every small thing seemed to matter deeply to her. As the night went on, The fire cracked softly, filling the silence. The man asked her about her past, and she shared only what was needed. She spoke of family members who were gone, of land she once knew, of a life that had slowly slipped away piece by piece. There was sadness in her words, but also strength. She did not speak like a victim. She spoke like someone who had endured much and was still standing. He listened more than he spoke. With each passing moment, his fear faded. In its place grew something unexpected: respect. This woman, who had nothing, still carried herself with honesty and control. She never once crossed a line or made him uncomfortable. When it was time to sleep, he showed her a small space near the fire with a blanket. She thanked him again and lay down quietly. Before closing her eyes, she repeated her promise softly. "I will be gone before morning." The man lay awake for a long time after that. He wondered if he had done the right thing. Trust was risky, but so was closing one's heart. As he watched the fire slowly fade, he glanced toward the woman. She slept lightly, as if always ready to move. Even in rest, she was careful. Outside, the wind continued to howl. But inside, there was warmth, not just from the fire, but from a moment of shared humanity. Two strangers, brought together by cold and chance, now shared the same space for one night. Neither of them knew it yet, but this night would not be forgotten. A simple knock, a quiet promise, and a choice made in the cold were about to change more than just one life. The fire burned low as the night moved forward, and the house grew quieter. The man slept lightly, waking often, not because of fear alone, but because he was not used to sharing his space with a stranger. Every small sound made him open his eyes. Each time, he looked toward the corner where the woman rested. She stayed still, wrapped in the blanket, breathing softly. Nothing felt wrong, yet his mind stayed alert. The woman did not sleep deeply either. Years of living without safety had taught her to rest with one ear open. She woke before dawn, when the sky was still dark but the cold felt sharper. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the warmth of the blanket and the quiet fire reminded her. She sat up slowly, careful not to make noise. Her stomach was still hungry, but she did not look toward the table. Her promise mattered more than comfort. She stood, folded the blanket neatly, and placed it back where she had found it. Every action was done with purpose, as if she were being watched. Even though the man still slept, she moved to the window and looked outside. The land was covered in pale frost, shining faintly under the early light. Leaving now would be hard. The cold would bite again, and the road would be empty. Still, she had given her word. As she turned to go, a quiet voice stopped her. "You're awake early." The man was sitting up, watching her. There was no anger in his voice, only curiosity. "Yes," she replied, "I should leave." He noticed the folded blanket, untouched table, and calm way she stood near the door. Something about the scene felt different from what he had expected. Most people, after a night of warmth, would hesitate to step back into the cold. She did not hesitate. "You haven't eaten," he said. "I ate what you gave me," she answered gently. That was enough. He stood and added more wood to the fire. The room grew warmer again. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he asked her to sit, just for a little while longer. Not as an order, but as a request. She agreed, sitting across from him, hands folded in her lap. He asked her how long she had been living like this. "Long enough," she said. "Long enough to learn what matters." She explained that at first, she had asked many people for help. Some ignored her. Some turned her away. A few helped briefly, then disappeared. Each time, she learned to expect less. Promises had been broken so often that she chose to make only one and keep it. The man listened carefully. He realized how easy it was to judge people from a distance, to see only their situation and not their choices. This woman had very little, yet she guarded her integrity like it was her last possession. As the sun slowly rose, the man noticed something else. Nothing in his house had been disturbed. Everything was exactly where it belonged. Even the chair she sat on was pushed back neatly. "You kept your promise," he said quietly. She nodded. "It's all I have." He thought about those words long after she said them. All I have. Not money. Not shelter. Just a promise, and the strength to keep it. He offered her a little more food before she left. This time, she accepted, but only after he insisted. She thanked him sincerely. Not with big words, but with honest eyes. Before stepping outside, she turned back to him. "Thank you for trusting me," she said. "I won't forget it." He watched her walk down the road, her figure slowly blending into the pale morning. For the first time in years, he felt unsettled, not because something bad had happened, but because something meaningful had. That day, he went about his routine, but his thoughts kept returning to the woman. He wondered where she would go next, how she would survive the coming nights, and whether trust could ever be enough in a world like this. Meanwhile, the woman walked steadily, despite the cold and tiredness. The warmth from the house stayed with her, not just in her body, but in her heart. It reminded her that not everyone had forgotten how to be human. As she walked, she thought about her past, about her people, her culture, and the lessons she had been taught growing up. Respect, honesty, and keeping one's word were not small things. They were everything. Even when life took everything else away, those values remained. By midday, her feet ached, and her strength weakened. She stopped near a small roadside area and rested. People passed by without noticing her. Some looked away. A few stared briefly, then moved on. She expected this. It no longer hurt the way it once had. What mattered was that she had kept her promise. That one night had proven something to her again, that she was still herself. No matter how hard life became, as evening approached, clouds gathered, and the wind returned. Another cold night was coming. She stood and continued walking, unsure of where she would sleep, but certain of who she was. Back at the house, the man prepared for another quiet night. But something had changed. The house felt emptier than before. The silence was heavier. He realized that trust, once given, left a mark. It made you see the world differently. He did not know it yet, but this was not the end of their story. It was only the second step. A promise had been tested and kept, and that simple truth was already beginning to shape what would come next. The next few days passed slowly, and the cold did not ease. The man went on with his daily routine, but his mind often drifted back to the woman who had knocked on his door that night. He tried to tell himself it was just a small moment, something that happened and ended. Still, her calm voice and steady promise stayed with him. He found himself wondering if she was safe, if she had found shelter, or if she was once again walking through the cold alone. On the third morning, as he stepped outside to gather wood, he noticed movement down the road. At first, he thought it was just a shadow. Then he saw her. She was standing near the fence, keeping a careful distance, as if unsure whether she should come closer. Her posture was straight, but her face showed signs of tiredness. The cold had not been kind to her. He felt a strange mix of surprise and relief. He walked toward her slowly. "I didn't expect to see you again," he said. "I didn't expect to come back," she replied. "But I had nowhere else to go." She explained that she had tried to find work in nearby places, but no one needed help. Nights were growing colder, and her strength was fading. She had debated for a long time before returning. She did not want to seem ungrateful or break the boundary they had shared. "I didn't come to ask for more," she added quickly. "I just wanted to tell you that your kindness helped me more than you know." The man studied her face. She looked thinner than before, and her hands trembled slightly. He remembered the way she had folded the blanket and left without taking anything. Trust returned to him without effort. "You can come in," he said. "Just to warm up." She hesitated, then nodded. Once again, she entered the house with the same quiet respect. Nothing about her behavior had changed. She did not act comfortable or careless. She remained aware of the space she had been given. This time, He asked her if she had ever worked nearby. "I have," she said. "Long ago. I used to help on farms. Cleaning, planting, whatever was needed." An idea slowly formed in his mind. He owned a small piece of land that needed attention. The work was simple but steady. He had always done it alone. But age and weather had made it harder. "There might be something you can do here," he said carefully. "Not charity. Work." Her eyes lifted, filled with surprise. "I would earn it," she said immediately. "I don't want favors." "That's exactly why I'm offering," he replied. They agreed she would help for a few days, just to see how it went. He gave her warm clothes suitable for work, and she accepted them as tools, not gifts. That distinction mattered to her. The following days showed him more than words ever could. She worked from morning until late afternoon without complaint. She asked questions when needed, listened carefully, and respected every instruction. Even when her body showed signs of strain, she did not stop unless told to rest. Other people in the area noticed her. Some whispered. Some watched with quiet judgment. She ignored them all. Her focus stayed on the work and the trust placed in her. One afternoon, the man returned home later than expected. As he approached the house, he felt a sudden fear. He had left her alone inside. For a moment, old doubts tried to rise, but when he opened the door, everything was as it should be. The floor was clean, tools were put away neatly. She was outside, finishing a task she had started. That moment settled something inside him. Trust was no longer a question. It was a fact. They spoke more as they worked. She shared stories of her childhood, of learning the value of patience and honesty from elders. Life had taken many things from her, but it had not taken those lessons. "I survive by remembering who I am," she told him one evening. "If I lose that, I lose everything." The man realized how little he had thought about his own values over the years. Life had made him cautious, even closed. This woman, with far less, had kept herself open in the most important ways. As the days passed, the work improved the land. But it also changed the space between them. They were no longer just strangers. There was understanding, built slowly, without pressure. On the 5th day, he offered her a longer arrangement, a place to stay in exchange for continued work, at least through the winter. He made it clear that she could say no. She took a long moment before answering. "I accept," she said finally. "But only if I can continue to keep my word." "You already have," he replied. That night, as the fire burned brighter than before, both of them felt something new. Not comfort, not relief, but possibility. A promise had not only been kept, it had opened a door to something neither of them had expected. The cold outside still existed, and the future was uncertain. But inside that small house, respect and trust were growing, steady and real. And for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt completely alone. Winter settled in fully, and the days grew shorter and colder. Snow fell lightly at first, then more often, covering the land in white silence. Inside the small house, life followed a new rhythm. The woman woke before sunrise every morning, just as she always had. She cleaned, prepared what she could, and waited for instructions before starting work. Even now, with a place to stay, she did not assume anything belonged to her. The man noticed this more than once. He told her she did not need to ask every time, that the house was partly hers now. She listened respectfully, but her habits did not change much. To her, respect was shown through actions, not words. Each day, they worked together. Some days were quiet, filled only with the sound of tools and wind. Other days, they talked while working. The woman spoke more freely now, though she still chose her words carefully. She shared stories of her people, of traditions that taught patience, responsibility, and the importance of keeping one's word. She spoke of elders who believed that a promise was a form of honor, something that followed a person for life. The man listened closely. He realized how little he truly knew about the lives of others. For many years, he had kept to himself, believing distance was safer. Now, slowly, that belief was changing. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped by, unexpectedly. He noticed the woman working and raised an eyebrow. His tone was polite, but his words carried doubt. He asked questions that felt more like judgment than curiosity. The man answered calmly. He spoke of her work, her honesty, and her effort. He did not defend her loudly or angrily. He simply told the truth. The neighbor nodded, said little, and left. But the woman had heard enough. Later that evening, she thanked the man. "You didn't have to speak for me," she said. "I wanted to," he replied. "You've earned that." She looked down for a moment, then said something quietly. Most people never see past what they expect to see. That night, the man thought about her words. He realized how often he had done the same in the past. As weeks passed, the woman's strength slowly returned. Her face no longer looked as tired, though her eyes still carried the weight of experience. She never forgot where she came from, or how quickly life could change. That memory kept her grounded. One evening, after a long day, the man noticed her sitting by the fire, deep in thought. "You look worried," he said. "I'm thinking about the future," she replied. "I don't want to stay still forever. I want to stand on my own again." He respected her honesty. He told her about a small opportunity in a nearby town. A friend of his sometimes needed help with steady work. It was not easy, but it was fair. Her expression changed, a mix of hope and fear. Starting again meant risk. But she had never avoided effort. "I would like that," she said, "if it comes from work." They agreed to speak with the friend together. The following week, they traveled to town. The woman wore clean clothes, simple but neat. She stood tall, even when people looked at her with curiosity. The meeting was quiet and respectful. The friend asked questions about her experience. She answered honestly, without trying to impress. By the end of the conversation, there was an understanding. She would be given a chance. Walking back, the woman felt a strange mix of emotions: gratitude, nervousness, and determination all at once. "I won't forget what you've done," she told the man. He shook his head. "You did this yourself. I just opened a door." That night, snow fell heavily. The fire burned strong, and the house felt warmer than ever. The woman packed her few belongings carefully. She would begin work soon and move closer to town. She planned to return when she could, not out of need, but respect. Before sleeping, she stood by the door, looking around the room. "This place saved me," she said softly. "No," the man replied. "You saved yourself." They shared a quiet moment, understanding that change was coming. Not an ending, but a new step. Outside, the storm continued. But inside, there was peace. A small act of trust had grown into something larger. Proof that honesty and effort still mattered. And though the future was uncertain, both of them knew one thing clearly. A promise, once kept, had the power to change lives. Spring arrived slowly, almost carefully, as if the land itself needed time to believe the cold was truly over. Snow melted into thin streams, and the hard ground softened again. The woman had been living and working near the town for several weeks now. Her days were full. Not easy, but steady. She woke early, worked until her hands were sore, and rested only when the work was done. Every coin she earned felt meaningful because it came from effort, not pity. She rented a small room close to where she worked. It was simple, with plain walls and a small window, but it was hers. Each night, before sleeping, she remembered the winter night when she had nowhere to go and the courage it took to knock on a stranger's door. That memory did not bring sadness anymore. It brought strength. The man stayed in his quiet house on the edge of town. Life returned to its familiar pace. But he was not the same person he had been before that knock. He noticed things more now. He noticed people. He listened differently. Acts of kindness no longer felt risky to him. They felt necessary. Every few weeks, the woman visited him. She never arrived empty-handed, though he told her many times it was not required. Sometimes, she brought food she had prepared herself. Other times, just time and conversation. They talked about work, about the changing seasons, and about life. There was no debt between them, only respect. One afternoon, as they sat outside watching the sun lower in the sky, the man asked her something he had been holding back. "Why did you come back that morning?" he asked. "You could have kept walking." She thought carefully before answering. "Because you treated me like a human being," she said. "Not a problem, not a risk, just a person." He nodded slowly. He understood now how rare that simple act could be. As months passed, the woman's life continued to improve. People at work began to trust her. They saw her honesty, her consistency, and her quiet strength. More responsibility followed. With it came better pay and stability. She saved what she could, planning carefully. She had learned not to waste second chances. One evening, she received news that surprised her. A community group was looking for someone to help guide others who were struggling, especially those who felt invisible. Someone had mentioned her name. At first, she laughed softly at the idea. She had never seen herself that way, but the thought stayed with her. She remembered how close she had come to giving up, how one night of warmth and trust had kept her moving forward. Slowly, she realized that her story was not just hers anymore. It could help others feel less alone. She accepted the role, not as a leader above others, but as someone who understood. She spoke simply, honestly, never pretending life was easy. People listened, because she did not speak from theory. She spoke from experience. The man attended one of the gatherings quietly, standing in the back. He watched her speak with calm confidence. The same woman who once stood shivering outside his door, now stood strong, offering hope through truth. He felt something deep inside him: pride. Not in what he had done, but in what she had become. After the gathering, she found him waiting. "You didn't tell me you were coming," she said, smiling. "I didn't want to distract you," he replied. "I just wanted to see." They walked together for a short distance, comfortable in silence. "You kept your promise," he said finally. She looked at him, a little confused. "I promised I would leave by morning," she said. "No," he replied gently. "You promised you would take nothing that wasn't given. And you didn't. You earned everything after that." She understood then. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. She had learned that strength did not mean hiding emotion. It meant standing steady with it. Years later, the story of that winter night was still told quietly. Never as something dramatic, but as something true. A poor woman. A cold night. A simple promise. No grand words. No rescue. Just two people choosing honesty over fear. The woman never forgot where she came from, and the man never forgot what he learned. Their lives continued on different paths, but they remained connected by that single moment of trust. And whenever the woman passed a house with a light on during a cold night, she remembered how one open door had changed everything, not because of wealth or power, but because someone chose to listen when she said, "I'm cold, please let me in." That promise, once spoken in desperation, became a quiet example of how dignity, when respected, can grow into a future no one expects.